not able to share with you. Let's reset. It is the top of the hour. My name is Vladimir Duthier. Thanks for joining us. So, as we've been pointing out, President Trump's nominee for director of the CIA says she would not restart an interrogation program if she is confirmed. Gina Haspel, a 33-year veteran of the agency, faced tough questions from the Senate Intel Committee. She defended her reputation as a morally sound leader. Haspel was in charge of a controversial interrogation program after 9/11. She also discussed the destruction of interrogation tapes that contained video of waterboarding. Here's a bit of what she had to say.
Having served in that tumultuous time, I can offer you my personal commitment, clearly and without reservation, that under my leadership, on my watch, CIA will not restart a detention and interrogation program. In all of my assignments, I have conducted myself honorably and in accordance with U.S. law. Our lawyers were very consistent in saying to us that there was no legal requirement to retain the tapes, no legal impediment to disposing of the tapes. I'm not a lawyer, but I believe the basis for that judgment was the fact that there was a complete and written, detailed record of the interrogations. My moral compass is strong. I would not allow CIA to undertake activity that I thought was immoral, even if it was technically legal. I would absolutely not permit it. We are all about bringing the most sophisticated, objective, all-source analysis we can to make sure that the president and his team have the best intelligence that we can deliver.
As Gina Haspel earlier, one of the more heated moments on Capitol Hill was between Democratic Senator Kamala Harris and Haspel near the end of the hearing. Take a listen.
Do you believe the previous interrogation techniques were immoral? I'm not asking, do you believe they were legal? I'm asking, do you believe they were immoral?
Senator, I believe that CIA did extraordinary work to prevent another attack on this country, given the legal tools that we were authorized to use.
Please answer yes or no. Do you believe in hindsight that those techniques were immoral?
Senator, what I believe sitting here today is that I support the higher moral standard we have decided to hold ourselves to.
Can you please answer the question?
Senator, I think I've answered the question.
No, you've not. Do you believe the previous techniques, now armed with hindsight, do you believe they were immoral? Yes or no?
Senator, I believe that we should hold ourselves to the moral standard outlined in the Army Field Manual.
Okay, so I understand that you've not answered the question, but I'm going to move on.
Olivia Gazis is a CBS News producer, and she joins us from Capitol Hill. She was sitting throughout the course of that hearing, listening to the senators and Gina Haspel take those questions. Olivia, let's sort of back up to the start of this hearing. What are the key takeaways from Haspel's responses to those senators?
Vlad, from being in the room, I knew that we walked into a tense atmosphere that was punctuated by some protesters who were removed from the room rather swiftly. But I don't think there were any real surprises in terms of the questioning that Haspel encountered today. Really, the overwhelming focus was on her involvement with the interrogation program instituted by CIA in the aftermath of 9/11 and on her role in the destruction of tapes documenting those interrogations. Senators didn't really stray from those two topics. There were a couple of other questions, but really none related to anything like Iran, North Korea, China, or where Haspel intends to take the future of the agency. They really drilled down on those most controversial topics, and Haspel gave answers that I think were rather anticipated. She said that she was not in a senior management role at the time the interrogation program was instituted. She declined to answer any questions about the exact nature of her involvement in the interrogation of one detainee, saying she could address that better in a closed setting. And on the tape destruction, we suspected that she was an advocate. She confirmed it today. She said she was absolutely an advocate for destroying the tapes, but that she thought that that was going to be done legally, and in fact her boss, Jose Rodriguez at the time, did that thinking he had the legal authority to give that order.
Olivia, is it your sense in covering this hearing and covering all of those lawmakers that on both sides of the aisle, Gina Haspel's record is rock solid when it comes to her experience, when it comes to her competence as a senior member of the Central Intelligence Agency? I thought one of the more poignant moments is when she talked about being on the front lines, going back to the Cold War. She mentioned Johnny Michael Spann, the very first American that was killed in the war on terror in Afghanistan just a few months or a month or so after 9/11. She mentioned the Camp Chapman attacks in which 6 CIA agents were killed. She was talking about the stars that are there behind in the entrance of the CIA headquarters. So it does seem as if both sides of the aisle agree that she's competent, but there's that sticking point about the morality with regards to those interrogation techniques.
I think you're absolutely right, Vlad. I think senators on both sides really acknowledge that she's respected, if not revered, within the agency, just given the wealth of her experience on the operations side, which is rare for a woman to have risen to the level that she has, given that background. And many of them thanked her for her service, and she spoke to it. She said she knew in her gut the first day that a plane flew into the tower in Manhattan that it was bin Laden. She talked about how that experience is going to help her go after hard targets like Russia and Iran and China. And I think that was acknowledged. Her experience was definitely acknowledged as an asset. It was the complicated parts of her background and the parts that she did not make available to discuss in an open setting that senators really faulted her for. I think they wanted to use this occasion to really show to the American people that who this nominee was, and they felt they didn't have the opportunity to do that on the Democratic side.
Yeah, break that down for our viewers. A lot of senators asked about the material that was released, and most of it that was declassified was in support or was sort of laudatory about her accomplishments at the agency. And there were a lot of things that were redacted, which they feel were perhaps things that were controversial. And they were asking her specifically why that was the case and whether she had any power, whether it was in fact she herself who chose to have those moments redacted. Just explain for our viewers the totality of what the Democratic lawmakers were looking for.
Absolutely. And this was a big and a recurrent criticism that Democratic lawmakers were making of the CIA and later of personally Haspel herself. As acting director, she arguably does have the discretion to declassify certain materials and make them available to the Congress and to the public. She argued today that it would be a conflict of interest for her to declassify any materials, even if they were derogatory about her, in order to benefit her standing in terms of the nomination. It's unclear if senators really bought that argument. Again, they were really hoping to hash out some of the more complicated parts of her background they claimed to know about. But Haspel maintained that those are classified for a reason, and that she, as technically the classifying authority, should not be benefiting her own nomination by making them available in order to appease those Democratic senators.
And finally, Olivia, I know it's probably going to be a very tough call for these lawmakers because on one hand, when Gina Haspel talks about the fact that they were able to get important information from Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who's the mastermind of the 9/11 attacks, when they were able to get information with regards to al-Harahim al-Nasiri, who was responsible for the USS Cole. Certainly all Americans would want to know that their government and the folks that do the work in their name are doing everything in their power to prevent American lives from being taken. On the other hand, there is this question of morality when it comes to using sort of these enhanced interrogation methods. So what's your sense of how this vote will play out?
It's a good question, Vlad, and nobody wants to be a prognosticator these days. I do think there was some unexpectedly gentler questioning from some Democrat members on the committee. Senator Manchin in particular was very gracious towards Haspel. But you played that interaction with Senator Harris from California. It was among the more contentious parts of the hearing. The room fell deadly silent when it happened. When Haspel was asked about whether the interrogation program was immoral, and she couldn't give a yes or no answer, because doing so would really repudiate an important part of the CIA's past, and she knows that she can't quite do that. So ultimately, the answer she provided was I believe the higher standard that we should adhere to now, as contained in the Army Field Manual, is the one that we should be sticking to. It's not clear that that will satisfy Senators Harris, Heinrich, Wyden, who are really looking for more candor, and Senator Warner, who also said the fact that she couldn't give a straight answer to whether that program was consistent with American values was disappointing.
All right, Olivia Gazis reporting for us from the Senate Intelligence Committee hearing room. Thank you.